What is up? What is up, Whale family? And welcome to Blockchain Beats, where we explore the pioneering artists taking audio and music to the next level of emerging tech with interactivity and NFTs. Our very special guest today is Humble the Poet, the Toronto bred rapper, author, filmmaker, spoken word creative powerhouse, and former elementary school teacher who has an aura that embodies his city of Toronto and commands attention. Humble, my dude, thank you so much for blessing us today.
Yo, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, no, I tell you, since we put out word, the community has been hyped to hear from the Beardo himself. So everybody has been eagerly anticipating us having a conversation with you. So super stoked. You are an amazing creative, and that's right in the wheelhouse of Whale.
Thank you so much. And I'm excited to take a deeper dive into the whale community the more I get to know it. And so far, everyone's just been super wonderful to me. Super grateful for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll just, I'll caveat this by saying this is definitely a two-way conversation. I know that you are new, relatively new to the NFT scene. You're still feeling your way around and what exactly you're going to be doing. So please know this is a conversation. You can ask me questions and, I'll be representative of the whale community and talking back to you. So not trying to put you on the spot, so to speak, but we do have lots of things we would like to talk to you about. And just to ground everyone here, for anyone that may not know too much about you, despite you being in so many different mediums, can you just give the audience like a brief intro about yourself and what you're about?
Yeah, so I am a multidiscipline artist. I rap, I do spoken word poetry. I had to film my own music videos and got into filmmaking that way. And when all my music resources went away, I got into writing and publishing. I'm a published author with HarperCollins. I have 2 releases with them. I also design my own t-shirts and sweatshirts. Again, just on the independent artist grind, spending the last 10 years doing so, learning how to do that. And I've had a lot of success with my fashion as well. And I help other people bring their ideas to life. I've written for other artists. I've helped write people's speeches. I do public speaking myself. Pretty much, if you got to put words together, I'm your guy, as well as going through this journey of better understanding myself using art, using creativity. And beyond that, I have a very wonderful, strong following on social media. So I do some influencer work here now and again. Most recently, I just did some underwear modeling with Saks.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so and that was more of a, let me take myself out of my comfort zone. Let me do something that I wouldn't normally do. So I took that opportunity to face a fear, and that's the journey I'm on. It's just I am a lifelong learner. I want to keep learning new things, and the only way to do that is to put myself in unfamiliar and uncomfortable places.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of the effectiveness of that was that you were putting yourself out there, and almost a dichotomy of kind of what people would traditionally look for as an aesthetic, and you saying, hey, I'm just representing myself here, and that comfort level. But before we get to that, I just wanted to touch a little bit more on like what makes you you. So from T dot originally, is that right?
Born and raised.
Excellent. A lot of creative forces have come out of there in the past, 10, 20 years or so. So I can definitely see that being a big influence in a lot of the stuff that you put out, actually.
Yeah, completely. It's it's one of the most multicultural places in the world. And I'm from a neighborhood in Toronto called Rexdale, which is one of the most multicultural neighborhoods of the city. And just that diversity has done so much to kind of inform the art we love, the food we eat, the way we dress, the way we act. And I'm super grateful for that. And now to see, one of the biggest rappers in the world being Drake, one of the biggest R&B singers in the world being The Weeknd, Shawn Mendes. We have so many, Jesse Reyes, Mustafa the Poet, if you guys aren't familiar with his work yet. There's just so many dope musicians coming out of this city embodying that diversity. And what happens when everybody on your streets from a different part of the world, what happens when you don't know the difference between people of different ethnicities and skin color, because that's just kind of what you grew up with. And it's been really cool because their stories become yours, and then you find your story through listening to theirs as well. And that's been a really cool part that I'm super grateful for.
It's interesting. I grew up in Boston, well,
Mm.
relatively Boston on the outskirts, and we can make a jaunt into Montreal. It's maybe 6 hours for a drive. So a couple of us have taken some adventures there, and I have to leave out the details because there's different age limits on things in Montreal than the States. But everyone would talk about Toronto. You need to get to Toronto. It's such a cool metropolitan city. You see so many cultures, and they're right. It's not like they exist in their own pockets. It's
Yeah.
it's really integrated, and you'll see like people with some kind of almost cyberpunk aesthetic riding the subway. I don't know if people were talking it up because they were just so blown away by the diversity of culture, of ethnicity, of thought that they experienced there. But it's something that I definitely have always heard.
Yeah, and I think you hit on the head too in mentioning cyberpunk, where it's not just people are diverse through their ethnicity. People are also diverse through their chosen archetype. So you can like go to a party and you might see three dudes who are all East Asian, but one's in goth, one's a yuppie, and one's completely dressed in a suit and tie. And that's when you're so comfortable being who you are. Now you get to go even deeper and decide who you want to be, and let that be represented through your fashion, through how you carry yourself, through the communities that you put yourself a part of. And I think that's the important part, where the multiculturalism is celebrated here, but now not only are people proud of where they came from, they're also proud of who they get to choose to be. And that's been something that I've been really trying to triple down on with the work I do and the stuff I want to celebrate in my art.
That's really cool, especially relative to the concept of the blockchain and the NFT space, and really having this new metaverse, so to speak, where people kind of choose what they want to be representative of, and they can create and foster that identity independent of socioeconomic conditions they grew up with, or really. You don't have to adhere to the local norms because there is no local norms, right? It's a global entity, and you are part of that global sphere, and you can just dive in. Whether you look like X, Y, or Z, you can get a crypto punk or whatever you want to be representative of you, right? And I think I was in a panel, or rather listening to a panel with Meta Coven and Whale Shark and other people talking about part of the movement is people embracing this process where they can adopt an identity, and that goes beyond themselves, right? That could live beyond you and your physical lifetime. There's all kinds of cool aspects with regards to that, but certainly when you talk about being able to choose and kind of have the whole palette available for you to paint what you want to be there in Toronto, the blockchain is definitely an extension of that.
Oh yeah, completely. And I think just even having this, the synonymous to be synonymous, is to decide your identity, but also still have a level of accountability to it. And I think that's really important because obviously, as visual creatures we're going to see what we see. You see a guy with a beard and turban, you're going to have certain assumptions, and that's understandable. But the moment we become, the moment you see an icon or the moment you see, a piece of digital art, now, you're able to go past that first superficial layer and move into something deeper. And this is where we get to decide who we are. And that who is a combination of choosing and also discovering. It's our nurture and our nature put together. And that journey in itself it's through trying new things. And the barriers of entry used to be so high, when we were growing up, whether it was a gatekeeper or what have you. And now with the blockchain, it's the accountability is there because the code's keeping us honest, but also the opportunities are available for everybody. And that's the super exciting part, where you no longer have to be what you were told you are. And now you get to go on this journey to better understand who you are, combine that with who you want to be, take those baby steps in the right direction, and share that with the world.
Definitely. So a lot of insight into some of the ingredients that go into the recipe for your art. I know that there's a lot of other things that we've shared in a prior conversation that we have similar interests on, from food to your love for hoops, which we can see you at all kinds of Raptors game, right? You're a longtime Raptors fan.
Hardcore. I got to since I was a kid. I remember when they announced the Raptors were going to be a team. I was in junior school. And then, begging my mom to like get me one of those official t-shirts, that had the little, the hologram logo on it, like a $40 t-shirt, and her not understanding what the big deal was. And all the way from that to traveling to both Oakland and to the ACC to watch all the finals games, being there for all those moments, and then getting to be, we have a big square in front of Air Canada Center called Jurassic Park. And I got to be in Jurassic Park for Game 6. So when we won, it was just a big party in the city. And it's one of those moments you'll never forget.
Yeah, I was a big Vince Carter guy, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
a little blasphemous, here in Boston. Local sports is culture, right? But you could not watch him and not appreciate his athleticism and the awesome stuff that he would do on the court. So I did have a Raptors jersey. It was a cool jersey, you got to admit. When
Oh,
they
yeah.
when they came out, that was a dope jersey to have.
Completely.
Combat sports, so many other cool cultural things that make up some of your interests and then are translated oftentimes into the visuals and sometimes the audio you put with your art as well. But
Mhm.
you've done so much, like you talked about: music, books, media, speaking, producing videos, blogging. I put down here inspo and intro because you do inspirational blurbs and sound bites that are on a lot of your social media that people love, has a ton of traction, but also a lot of introspective stuff, right? Because there's a lot
Mhm.
of influencers that throw up whatever picture of a mountain and tell you can climb any peak, right? But you make people think and do it in a palatable way that then it's actionable. They can do something with it and it resonates with them. And that's why I'm sitting here, like literally in front of me are both of your books because my wife has had them for some time.
Oh, wow.
And because she told me I loved his work because it was accessible. It wasn't coming from a pedestal where some intellectual prowess was trying to impress you, or Whale Shark's a big advocate of trying to dumb things down and make things simplistic, so you're not trying to add unnecessary things in there, and you make it accessible and palatable for people, and that's why it's so relatable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a school teacher, so I was teaching the third grade, and that was the big lesson you learned, which was make it digestible, and accommodate. If a student doesn't understand a lesson that you're teaching, that's on you. That's not on them. It's the way that you deliver it, and thinking about my favorite rappers growing up, thinking about my favorite authors growing up, they were always the ones that didn't use more words than they had to. And the thing is, my journey into the inspo world had much less to do with me trying to inspire others and more to do with myself. I quit my job thinking I got a record deal, and the record deal fell through, and all of a sudden I was in a boatload of debt. I was in about $80,000 worth of debt. I was unemployed, and I had no idea how artists made any money. And what it was is I was seeking inspiration, motivation, and advice. I was seeking all of that, and I started coming across all that fluffy stuff. The God doesn't close the door without opening a window. Believe in yourself. Just like this fluffy stuff that didn't have any pragmatic tips to it that would actually help me pay my bills or help me stop beating myself up. And then that's when I started going deeper and deeper. And when I started finding the pragmatic stuff, I started sharing that, back then on Facebook. And as I was learning these lessons and processing them, because that's the big thing. When we have thoughts, they're just fragmented in our head. We have to put them down. Either we have to speak them out loud, or we have to write them in our journals, or write them on social media, or what have you. And I was doing that to figure myself out, because I was beating myself up for the mistakes I made. I shouldn't have quit my job. I shouldn't have been living off credit cards. I shouldn't have put myself in debt. And going through that process and understanding that, okay, all my regrets have to do with the past. All my anxiety has to do with the future. And all my happiness and my peace has to do with the present. Now, how do I become present? And I would start breaking this stuff down and using all the skills that I developed as an elementary school teacher to really chunk this stuff into digestible stuff. And it was never about me trying to be a teacher to anybody else. It was me being the student trying to share their notes with everybody else. And I'm super grateful that people connected with it. And I do feel like it's a great service that I've been fortunate enough to do, where I'm taking this heavy shit and I'm making it feel a little bit lighter. In the same vein of a Dr. Seuss, or in the same vein of certain rappers like an Andre 3000, who talks about very deep stuff, but they never use, words bigger than mayonnaise. And I think that's really important in terms of making it, accessible to everybody, because not everybody's going to have access to the same level of vocabulary and education. And this stuff doesn't need to be reserved for people who do. So that's been a really huge priority on my side, in terms of accessibility. And also, I grew up, my father was a cab driver. He just recently retired a few years back. And, the focus on education was there, but it was also, growing up in a blue collar family, and having, and even till today, within my friend circle, I have friends who are doctors and lawyers, but I also have friends who are airport security guards who didn't make it out of high school. And that diversity of opinions and education was always important too, to be able to connect with everybody, because these connections are the pathways to love, and our relationships are the most important things we have in the world.
100%. And before I go too far down the rabbit hole with your authorship and the books that you had written, take me back in time a little bit. You're growing up in Toronto. You're influenced by all these. Obviously you were into hip hop. You had a lot of other things that you were into as well at the time. How did you start getting involved in art? What was your first creative outlet?
My first creative outlet was probably story writing when I was really young. When I was in elementary school, we would all be required to write, just stories for class. And I remember writing, I think after watching, Friday the 13th and one of those Freddy Krueger films, kind of repurposing it and turning my teacher into Freddy Krueger, and writing the story where every student in the class was a character. And it was such a hit, even though it was a very violent book. And I'm sure, if a kid my age, if a kid did it now, they'd probably get flagged and sent to social services. But everyone seemed to enjoy it back then, including the teacher. And it just kind of put me in this frame of writing narratives and storytelling and absorbing stories deeper than I normally would have, in terms of paying attention to the beginning, middle, and end, the problem solution. And really paying attention to literary devices. And then when I was in high school, getting exposed to Shakespeare, and everybody knows who Shakespeare is, but recognizing what the magic of Shakespeare was. And then all of a sudden being exposed to hip hop. And with hip hop, it was like, here are guys doing all the same things that Shakespeare is doing, but they don't know they're doing it. They don't know that they're using alliteration. They don't know that they're using onomatopoeia or adverbs or adjectives. They're just speaking, and they're speaking from the heart. And there was something very visceral and raw about that. So, the first time I ever shared any work, it was with the world. It was probably poetry at an open mic night, and it was less about sharing poetry and more about creating an icebreaker for the girls that were in the room. As many artists, gentlemen, we use this to meet girls and stuff, and I was no different, going to these poetry slams and stuff, and then also participating in early forums. I was in an Outcast forum, and I was also in a battle rap forum. I used to participate in a lot of battle raps, and they were both on audio and also on text, and and that was completely synonymous back then. And I'm talking probably like 2005, 2006. And from that standpoint, just realizing that, I was putting in the hours and I was getting better at the craft, but the confidence wasn't there. And I've noticed that's the thing with a lot of artists is, they may have their craft on point, or they're putting in the hours to get better, but that confidence, they're waiting for that cosign, or they're waiting for that validation to kind of share it with the world. And I was in that same situation. And then every time I kind of nudged myself a little bit more to share, it was nothing but positive, even if it was a victory of overcoming a fear. And that was probably the first amount of creative outlet I was sharing. And then once I realized that not everybody, communicates the same way, there was an issue in my community around, drugs. And I was at this meeting with a bunch of older people. And what they had said was, these kids don't listen to anybody. And immediately my teacher brain said, it's not that kids aren't listening, it's that you don't know how to speak to them. And then my art started diving into, I started making songs about what was happening in my community. I started making songs about social issues, talking about everything from Israel and Palestine to what was happening in Somalia at the time, what was happening in both Canada and United States with regards to our Aboriginal people. And really that was a huge impact. I was heavily impacted by Malcolm X growing up, and seeing that he had both, this side of activism, but he also had the gift of gab. He had the swagger to get people to listen. And I saw that as an extension through hip hop. And when I got exposed to Common, CeeLo, Goody Mob, Outkast, Lauryn Hill, Wyclef back then, everybody, there even DMX, One Love DMX, rest in peace. Yeah, there was elements of spirituality. He was the first one I ever heard rapping prayer, speaking to God, fighting the devil. And there's also, speaking, painting a picture about what's happening in the world, that I wasn't aware of, and realizing that, this was opening my eyes, taking me places that I couldn't go. and I can do the same thing and help expose other people. And as I kept sharing, the biggest piece of feedback I kept getting was, it's like you're telling my story. And that really helped me realize that we're all in the same boat. We're all dealing with the exact same things. But for some reason, we all feel isolated when we deal with them. And we all feel like we're the only ones. And I think art is a way to help connect people and remind them that, no, look, there's 1,000,001 heartbreak songs because everyone's gone through a heartbreak. And this is a wonderful opportunity for us to connect with each other and offer our common joys and our common pains.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting that you say how it spoke to you because of the language, and as far as the language being different than some other mediums that delivered the message, it still had the same thematic. It had still had the same emotive feel. It still communicated the same thing. I remember listening at one point to, I think it was Deep Cover, right? And I love the song. I'm a young teen. I'm not out there making narc deals or whatever was going on in the song, right? But Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg and some of the more aggressive hip hop at the time spoke to me, not because of what they were talking about, but because it tapped into almost an emotional state of being able to express yourself and emote in a certain way. And so music is powerful in the way that it does that. And you can see in a lot of comments on a lot of your videos and a lot of your music that's posted out there on the internet, that your music speaks to a lot of people as well in that way. And that's probably the biggest compliment that you can get, when people feel something and have a visceral reaction to music. Because the antithesis, apathy is the absolute worst reaction to any art, right? And so you definitely stir a lot of discussion and a lot of emotion, so props to you for that.
Thank you.
I would love to play one of your songs, actually, so people can get a feel for your musical prowess, because here's an incredible thing. I actually had a lot of exposure to you without even knowing you were the same person in all these different facets, right? My wife had the books in the house. We've listened to the music since like 2016, 2017, because it fed it to us in our playlist with some different artists that we like, had seen you on different socials and on different places where you've spoken. And then when we finally got word that you were involved and we were going to talk, it all connected. You've been out there in so many forms.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that. It's really interesting because every now and then the little voice in the back of my head is like, you're doing too many things. You should only be doing one thing. Stick with music or stick with the books or stick with the fashion. And every single time I do something, there's enough something great happens that reminds me that I can do it all. And there was a great book called Steal Like an Artist, which said, don't worry if any of your work doesn't have a common thread. You're the common thread. And yeah, it's amazing to hear that story about just you coming across my work in so many different mediums and different forms, and I'm grateful for that. And it's just a really good example that when you plant seeds, they grow at their own speed, and our paths were meant to cross when they were meant to cross, and I'm grateful for that.
Awesome. So is this your latest published video that you would put out, Hair?
So I will. The last one I shared with you came out probably maybe a year after this, and then I have a couple of lyrics videos that are out right now that I was experimenting.
I had I Will queued up as well because that's super dope. And definitely talks to some of the different creative things that you were trying to do. So let's take a look at that.
Okay, let's do it. I won't. To what you couldn't handle half of me. I do this naturally. These bastards after me. I make them casually. You see her go casually and her go casually. And then weekends at the beach with sand up on the sheet. My man up on the beat. We rapping honestly. Believe me, music be the movement, get you on your feet. And believe me gladly. A breath of fresher when everybody be sounding like Sierra, baby. I know you won't, but yes I will. Cause I don't play no game. And I don't play no game. No, you
roll with haters, traitors, concubines. Not in that order, I'm older. Told them about it, you crossed the line of foreign soil. Seeking asylum while I'm trying to be an island. Her claim denied, the portal like shine. Guess that I am xenophobic, a little stoic, rolling solo, screaming YOLO, going ham with whatever acronyms I need to quote to keep afloat atop the main street. Sound shallow, but your paddles can't battle the current, let alone the cattle herded by hand-me-down ideas, sour, chunky, and expired. Power life within, bring a monkey wrench, it's time to ride. Junkie for that funky shit, bumping up the trunk, fuck the punk police, drunk up powers over all you cowards. No, you won't. Yes, I will. And I don't play no games. And I won't play no games. I know you won't. But yes, I will. Cause I don't play no games. And I don't play no games. Son of a cabbie rapper, one hungry happy camper. No one among me matters. I come to run the chatter, funded among the fungus, not a sucker among us. I know they hopes and secrets, but they gon' keep deceiving. And some gon' start believing and help them start achieving. And they gon' start the beefing and make it awkward even. And they get mobbed and beaten. These suckers soft and weak, man. And I don't get a weekend. And I don't take vacation. And I don't fuck with bullshit. Cause I'm a fucking bullet. Louder than the sound of speed and louder than the sound of grease. And go and drop down to your knees. Press your hands and pray for these waste men. Waste you thinking they're replaced knowledge. But yes, I will. Cause I don't play no games. And I won't stay away. I know you won't. But yes, I will. Cause I don't play no games. Cause I don't play no games.
Yes, I will. Cause I don't play no games. And I don't play no games.
Super dope.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
One of the things that was so striking to me when watching that was just the care that was obviously taken with the visuals. Thematically, there's so many cool things that could be touched on, and my understanding is you storyboarded and you know basically plotted this all out yourself, right?
Yeah. So I wrote and co-directed it. I have a great team out here called Parliament Pictures, and we developed a relationship in terms of just trying to create some super dope stuff. So like even that first scene, if you've seen her smashing with the bat, that's actually an homage to Contact, because if you follow it along, it flips. And I'm pretty much, I was inspired by the 1970s film The Warriors, where you had a whole bunch of different aesthetic gangs.
Right.
And, so trying to create different aesthetics and different gangs and tell different stories amongst it at the same time. So, like this scene right here where I have a bunch of, Caucasian folks dressing up in Indian clothing. And then you see me with the money phone. You see me, taking the one brown girl and telling her to wear a blonde wig, is really kind of, flipping the idea of cultural appropriation on its head, having that conversation, and at the same time, getting people to think about things in ways they haven't really thought about it. And then here, in the background, that's all my family. Those are all my uncles and cousins, and everybody in my family, they grew up off cabbies. And these are all cabbies that have done so much for us. And then in this background, the trucking, that's actually my uncle's trucking company. So he went from a cabbie to a trucker to a truck owner to a whole shipping company. So this is like everything you're seeing. So it's kind of just showing like the homage to the immigrant, the homage to where we started and what we've been able to do. So these are all my family members, and it's just showing them in a light that's worth showing them in. And having these kids here play with a bunch of technology that they don't understand, that's my niece actually in the black. and getting her to play with a Polaroid camera. She didn't know what that is, and
Right.
just having them, it's just really creating these different things. And at the same time too, like I had a sponsorship with Nike. They sent me a bunch of clothes, and we decided to do something funny with that as well by giving them to the kids. And the whole process, and this was produced by a really talented artist by the name of Sid Kick. And Sid Kick, he wasn't in town when I was shooting this, so this scene was an homage to him here, where you see his logo on that girl's face. And it was really about finding different visuals and bringing them to life. And it was, I was really lucky. I got to have a one-on-one conversation with George Lucas.
Wow.
Yeah, randomly, I was at I was at Skywalker Ranch for an event, because they opened it up for events, and he was there. I was there, and I walked up to him and sat down, and I asked him a question, and I guess he wasn't busy, and it turned into a 1-hour conversation. And one of the things he said to me when I asked him, I said, why did you start with part 4 in Star Wars and not part 1? And he said, because I'm an artist and I can do whatever I want. And that just, it totally inspired so many decisions of just like bring this stuff to life, because it can come to life. Tell these stories in ways that you want to tell them, whether people connect with them immediately, they connect with them 5 years from now, or what have you. And there's so many things that are inside of us that we're so hesitant to share with the world. And it was hearing that part of that conversation where you're just like, look, I'm an artist, and let's do these really cool things. Let's tell these cool stories, and let's layer them, and give people a reason to watch them again, and give people a reason to sit in a room after and talk about it. And yeah, Pavitra Singh Basi, that girl at the end, the one who's crying, that's actually her brother. He was a victim of violence, and he passed away, and so we dedicated this in his memory. So it was, it was kind of, the young artist in me made a lot of promises. Once, you say, oh, once I'm put on, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then what you don't realize is the deeper you get into the world of like corporate art, the less freedom you have, the more you're creating for other people, and you're creating for profit, and you have a bunch of people with deep pockets telling you what you can and can't create. And I almost got lost in that sauce. And these music videos became one of the outlets where I was able to say, hey, let's just bring these ideas to life, for the sake of bringing them to life. And for me, I think great art is when you're adding to a space, and adding something new to the space. And one of the biggest enemies of art are the people that believe that everything should be the way they've always been. And from that standpoint, it's always been about, creating this cycle of being a student, learning as much as I can, gaining as much inspiration as I can, taking what I learned, sharing it with everybody else in a manner that's easy for them to digest. And as those relationships build, they put me in more situations to learn more, and pick more brains, and read more books, and experience more art, and have a deeper dive into more mediums, and just continuing that process. And it's kind of an each one teach one community living from that standpoint.
100%. You hit the nail on the head. So many times we have artists on, and we have that conversation on, trying to stay true to that vision of creating your art for the sake of wanting to express and create, and not to have an end product, because it's easy to get caught up in the chase, right?
Yeah, especially if it works, especially if it works out. It's not about, a lot of people are putting out art and not gaining traction, but it can also bite you in the ass the other way. You put out one piece of art, you have a happy accident, all of a sudden it goes viral, or let's say one certain NFT you have sells for a bunch, that gets into your head, and now you want to replicate that success. And I heard someone speak recently, and he said, you tell somebody you're an artist and they ask you if you're any good, but if you tell somebody you enjoy going for walks, they don't ask you if you're any good. And that's what art is. Art is therapy. Art is what we do to feel better. It's like, I enjoy playing ping pong. I enjoy punching my punching bag. It doesn't matter if I'm good or not. It matters that I'm doing it for personal therapy, for my mental health. And it's the same thing with creating art.
Right. Are you good though? Because Whale Shark does practice Muay Thai, so I'm just throwing that out there.
Maybe not. I don't have the shins for Muay Thai. I mean,
Okay.
I can box, and my footwork is decent. And I have a history of being able. My chin has been pretty good to me so far in both regulated and unregulated fights. I mean,
Yeah, I saw you on the roof of those cars. I said, I feel like this man has some good footwork. And I know from experience, the chin is held by a beard, so certainly you got a little bit of extra cushion there.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure I could take a few shots depending on how thick the gloves are. But if he starts hitting me with those shins, it's game over.
This is true. This is true. And they may be newly tattooed with a whale tattoo, but we'll talk about that at another time. I did have a question for you. You have such a vision that you try to carry throughout the entire process, from the music to the layering with the visuals. If you could characterize your creative voice, what would you say it is?
Simple, light, honest. Simple, light, honest, and accessible. You know, I want it to be as easy as possible, and I want it to connect with as many people where they're at, as possible. I'm not trying to make some abstract stuff that gets too difficult. I like making the weird stuff, but at the same time, there's always something there that's worth connecting with. For I think about my nieces and nephews a lot, and they range from age 9 to 16 right now. And I always think about that. So even this video that you put up right now is called Hair, and what I tried to do here was, all my videos are all Toronto. So this is in the city of Toronto, and I tried to highlight as many different females with different hairstyles, different body types, different skin tones as possible. So they're doing all the rap, they're performing the entire song, and I'm a secondary character in this entire video. And it was another vision that I had, and it was just so much fun even casting this. Getting to find some interesting people and find really creative spaces in the city. This place is called Underpass Park. It's just an entire artist, a bridge that's full of different artists who have curated art underneath. And as you can see, it's just super cool. So finding different locations in the city, finding different people to kind of represent it. So this song specifically, it's a light song, it's a fun song. Really finding, creating tableaus. As I told you before in our conversation, like I grew up on Busta Rhymes and Missy Elliott videos, and those were the larger than life videos back when videos really matter, and really trying to say, okay, how can I tell a whole story in 15 seconds? And each of these stories, even though there's only 15 seconds worth of footage in each part, that was half a day to shoot every single scene. And these are the times that you shoot for 20 hours and don't even feel it. And that was one of these. So these little subtle homages in here. So this, she's redheaded, little Poison Ivy vibe. At the same time, you see me being old school with a pencil, with a cassette tape. This is me at showing my inability to be bougie at the same time. So trying to understand high life, and so every single tableau had a really different story. This is just May Lee. She's just super dope. Another really cool artist in our city, and this little tableau of the Red Room, having something really funky play off over there. This is her Jessie. She's a former gymnast, and she just started a tea company that came out. And then this is my friend Lily Singh. She has a show on NBC. She has her own late night show on NBC, and this was kind of showcasing this entire video was about celebrating women, and celebrating them in a way that was empowering to them, and letting them kind of set the tone for how they want to be represented, especially in the hip hop videos where women are often represented, but they're not represented the ways that they're always choosing. So this was just a really cool part, and then me getting to be in the background of it was really fun and cool, and just trying to do different things. So these are a couple other dancers that I work with, and all the fashion too. All the fashion is Toronto based artists. This is a nor black nor white. They're Toronto based artists that made those kind of oil spill overalls and stuff. So it's really an opportunity to kind of like empower the local artist community here as well, and let them know that, hey, we can bring beautiful ideas to life in our city with our own talent. You don't got to go to Hollywood. You don't got to get discovered by somebody else. We can do it ourselves. And that's the vision with all the things that I try to do.
It's super dope. And there's at least to me, there's a thematic undercurrent of embracing cultural nuance and really putting it at the forefront. It's one thing to talk about celebrating diversity, but when you make it the norm, and instead of homogenizing things, celebrate the heterogeneous nature of everyone being different and having different attributes, and that being dope. You know,
Yes.
so many people grow up and think they need to blend in and do X, Y, and Z to be part of the culture. And instead it's like, hey, you are the culture.
Yes, exactly. We are contributors to the culture. We're not just participants. And those, those who set the rules in the past, which it's fine that they did, but it's our job to reevaluate those. It's our job to take what was still valuable from the old and apply it to the new. Things need to get better to evolve. And we don't have to, stick with the past with the dinosaurs. And I know for me, when I start creating content now, it's really about what do my niece and nephew need to see, not what will my parents be okay with, or what will people my age be okay with. And it's like, what do they need to see? They just need to see themselves. They need to see diversity. They need to see two women together being intimate in a non-hypersexualized way. They need to see, they need to hear different ideas. This song right here, Love Won't Pay the Rent, it's a love song, and the chorus is put your forehead on mine, because people will have sex before they'll hold hands these days. Intimacy has a whole different meaning, and trying to find different ways to expose these and explore these ideas. And finding this is another local artist to help me make these visuals, this lyrics video. And again, finding really cool creative artists, and really, my only instruction to them is like, yo, fuck it up, do your thing.
Right.
And I've seen your work. I know what you're doing. Let me try to have as few parameters as possible, because when other people have given me those opportunities, those are the times that I'm able to shine myself.
100%. When I got a tattoo, when I go to the barber and they ask me, what do you want? I say, do me like you would do it. Like, I am your canvas. That's why
Yes.
I pay you, because I appreciate the craft. I appreciate your skill set in it. And that's what I value. That's invaluable to me. I will pay you way beyond what the rate of it is, because it's unique and it's what you are good at. So that is what's valuable, not the end product.
Yes, completely.
So you know what? It's crazy, because I have so many questions I wanted to ask you, but obviously I've kept you for a long time already, and I haven't even got through half of them. So I am going to have to parking lot some of these with regards to your creative process, your authorship, and a lot of these other things, and have you back if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Because I'd really like to move on to, relative to the whale family here, NFTs. Real quick, before we get to NFTs in particular, can you walk us through any exposure you had to crypto, or were you involved with cryptocurrency before this?
I'm gonna say no. I do have a friend who probably since 2010 was trying his best to explain crypto and to me. But back then I was in my struggling artist phase. I didn't have money to survive, let alone money to invest in anything, and trying to understand what it meant, where it was. There wasn't a lot happening there. And then I remember having, I think, a chiropractor I was working with. I think he cashed out on some Bitcoin. And I think that was kind of my first explanation to it. And I kind of looked at it as an investment. It wasn't until, maybe about 4 or 5 months ago, somebody was able to successfully explain to me the spirit of the blockchain, which I realize is way more important than any specific cryptocurrency or anything else. And it was this idea okay, this is the first tool ever made by humanity where the defender has more power than the attacker. This is, going through the white paper and reading the white paper a few times and being like, okay, I've done a little bit of coding. I can kind of understand what's happening. Like, okay, this is the code keeping everybody honest. This is, this reminds me of when I would, bootleg episodes of my favorite TV show on LimeWire or on uTorrent. I was like, okay, this is decentralized. I'm starting to understand this, and I'm starting to understand why it works in terms of currency. And then, going back to that friend, who now, is a very successful individual, and he's living internationally, and telling him what I understand, and him now saying, okay, now you're getting it. Now I need you to understand that there's an artist economy here. It's called NFTs. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. And again, he's not the greatest at explaining things. And it wasn't until Clubhouse emerged and I was able to kind of sit in multiple rooms and wrap my head around what, the fact that a currency isn't just what the blockchain is about. This is really something that we can use not only for, these NFTs, but also, for social tokens, for our own reputations and for everything else now. So it's been a game of exposure. And I mean, just as early as just as recently as yesterday, I was on um, I was on the Discord asking people for help with my MetaMask because I sent myself some stuff from my exchange and it didn't show up, and everybody in the Whale community was super nice, helping me, try to figure out what I did wrong. And so I've dipped my toe in it, and I'm understanding the spirit of it, and now it's about learning the technicals. So I have ideas of what I want to do for an NFT drop. Now it'll be about figuring out the technicals to make it happen. So I haven't got into the journey of minting anything yet, and I do know that the options are endless when it comes to this, as well as really trying to maintain the spirit of what I've been doing, which is connecting with people, ensuring people are left off better from crossing paths with me, and also providing value while at the same time being able to fulfill the promises I made, which is, create art that adds value to the world, and helps people better understand themselves and the world around them better.
Wow, that's great. And it's interesting. I always share with people that the origins of hip hop and the ethos of the culture of hip hop was counterculture. And similar vein, that's how cryptocurrency started. That was the purpose, to kind of buck the existing system and put the power back into the hands of the people, not a select few, gating, etc. And now to have that extension into the artist community has meant so much. And that was one of my questions for you. What was your exposure to NFTs? It sounds like it was really from being in these communities on Clubhouse and coming across it. And so you're on Clubhouse, you see these NFT rooms, you're in there, you're listening, you're participating in whatever way you can. What are you getting from that? What's the vibe? Like, what does that community kind of come across to you as?
Well, I think, first somebody had spoken to me about getting into NFTs, and that person is like a tech investor. And he was like, "Oh, this is a great way to earn some money." And I was like, that was my, another initial splash into it. But then when I came into the rooms, I was hearing, people like Blau talking. I was hearing, I was in rooms with Whale Shark, and it was like, oh, this is not about money. This is about what a world looks like when an artist isn't concerned with the money, and the artist isn't concerned with, keeping a middleman happy, or isn't concerned with mass appeal. This is an opportunity, this is an empowering opportunity. And this is what I was already figuring out with the blockchain, which is this is empowering people beyond, the current systems. And, not just on a financial tip, but also on a creative tip. And, I spent the last 5 years before the pandemic living in Los Angeles, living with and staying with a lot of very successful artists. But, they were contractually, obligated to create certain things. They were, either trapped in a reputation that made them have to create certain content that they didn't want to do anymore. I had friends who were YouTubers, friends who were, on Twitch, friends who were making music. And, it was that whole idea of there's art that feeds your soul, and there's art that feeds your family. And sometimes it's not the same art. And when I started to join these rooms in Clubhouse and hear these artists speak, especially the ones who had already found a lot of success, they were now talking about how to empower more artists. It was less, they felt, just from hearing them speak, they felt, like they were fulfilled artistically. They were able to be honest and authentic to themselves artistically, while at the same time figuring out the economy of it. And that's always been an important thing, because I've always been an independent artist. So it was never an option to shy away from the business side of things, but it was also something to be mindful of. Like, if you do something and you make some money off of it, then that can also steer you in that direction endlessly. And that in itself could, kill the spirit of why you started creating in the first place. And now you might become a creator on demand, or you're doing things for other people. And we see that every day. We see that with advertisements. Advertisements is artists using their talents to help other people sell their products. When, for me, the essence of art is advertising for things that matter. Whether it's a beautiful picture of a tree, or whether it's a sunset, whether it's a child or a puppy, or ideas that need to be expressed. So hearing these artists talk, it took me back to like my teen years, where it was all idealistic. But now this wasn't idealistic. This was, an idealism with your eyes open. This was, okay, we found ways to empower artists. And once these artists are empowered, now, instead of being encouraged to make their stuff easy and palatable for a mass market, now they're encouraged to be even more creative, even more unique, to dig deeper into themselves, get even more weird. And here's a community that is willing to support it. Here's a community that not only is supporting it in terms of dollars, but they're becoming early adopters on their movements, and the community members themselves are benefiting off of it. So this new economy based off of this, where your followers are no longer just buying a t-shirt and repping for you. Now they're investing in you, and they'll be able to benefit as well for being, one of the first people onto you. And for me, I think that's a super exciting thing. And that also for young artists, that takes away this idea that you have to hit a certain milestone to call yourself an artist. Now you just have to have, hip hop, all you needed was a heartbeat and a story, to be a hip hop artist. Now to be an artist, you just need to be able to create, just have the courage to step into the unknown and share your stuff with the world, knowing that there is somebody on this planet that will completely connect with that in a way that they cannot connect with anybody else's work.
Wow, very eloquently said. And that's part of the beauty of it, right? Like, you don't need to mass market for a particular scale to be able to self-sustain. Some people have to juggle 9 to 5s while they're trying to make art while they have waking hours. And, if they could focus more on it and just create, that benefits all of us. And NFTs allow that to happen in many regards. Someone could amass more funding from the sale of one NFT than they could from millions of streams, and so the paradigm is shifting. Like you said, it's empowering the artist to take more creative control, and also from the business perspective, some control there as well. And we talked in the past also of some other things. There's an opportunity to work on some greater collective creative purposes together, right? As a community, there's charitable opportunities. There's so much that you could work on through just being creative and doing what you want to do, but be able to accomplish and hit all these other facets as well. So it's so interesting to me to see how people like yourself, who aren't just with their foot in one area, you dabble in so many different things. The possibilities are truly endless to what you'll be able to do.
Yeah, and I'm excited for that. And I was having a conversation with Farouk, who's one of the popular clubhousers who hosts a lot of NFT drops. And he was saying, at first I didn't understand NFTs, and then all of a sudden I understood them, and then it became a no-brainer. And I'm like, then the next step is to understand how many different options and directions you can take it. And then all of a sudden you're even more confused because you just don't know which direction to go. And his only reply was like, welcome to the metaverse. And that's exactly what I think now, especially as a multidisciplinary artist, where it's like, okay, I want to be able to share something in audio. I want to be able to share something in video. I want to be able to share something with art. I want to be able to collaborate with these artists whose work I've always loved. And, also finding a lot of artists that I've been, just following on Instagram, loving their work and seeing them in the NFT space, pinging them, telling them to get in on it. Because I know some of them have to work their day job still until they get their stuff ready, because they've been depending on galleries to, showcase their work and stuff. And this is really, it's super interesting, super empowering, and it's super early. And I really love that. And also just, the idea of, it's getting easier every day for people to get into this space. And I think that's really exciting and interesting as well, not only from an artistic standpoint, but also from people who want to get involved in terms of collecting, as well as supporting artists that they like. So I'm super excited about even finding artists that, have just started, and I want to put myself in a situation to not only collaborate with some of these artists, but also, help them out. I know, depending on, for some people, even gas prices of minting stuff, could be beyond their scope right now. And if that's something I can help out with, because I'm a product of that. I'm a product of people letting me sleep on their couches. I'm a product of people saying, I don't understand the work you do, but I love what you do, so here's some money. Again, my first book, I crowdfunded it, and it was 305 people that helped me raise $26,000. And 90% of those people I had never met. And my biggest contributor was a Harvard professor who I had never met. And probably half of my biggest contributors were people I had never met or had only known for a couple of months. And there's something to be said about, putting yourself out there and finding people who dig it and who want to support it. And for me, I'm such a benefactor of that. I want to pay that forward. And I have a conversation later today with somebody about, some of the causes that I really believe in. Just maybe setting them up with a MetaMask, and putting them into my next NFT drop, just so those causes can continue to benefit off this financially as well, and put that in a situation where I can empower other people right now, right off the jump, and make that a part of my releases before I even do my genesis.
That's beautiful. I mean, there's so many people that are seeing what's going on with NFTs and seeing, kind of the influx of people from the mainstream now that they've seen some of the dollar sales and things of that nature. And you can just tell where there's authenticity and where there's not. And, the nature of everything that you've done has been to have an artistic purpose, to push the envelope. Like you said, you like to do things to be different, to make a statement with art and not just, follow in tow and be a me too. So, you'll definitely put something forward that will add a lot of value to the space, I'm sure. But one thing you said in particular that a lot of people discuss is some of these people that have the kind of reach you do, because you have millions of followers, millions of listens, international best-selling author, like you definitely have a reach. These people will come in and they'll just slap something together and release it as an NFT. You're talking about, let me reach out to people who are already in this scene or established or also working their way up. Let me leverage what I have to try to be a contributor to uplift everybody. And that's great to see, because there's so many people that are just trying to get involved for other reasons.
And to be 1000% honest, it is completely selfish on my end to do so, because since I began, since I, once I quit my job to become a full-time artist, it was the loneliest job in the world. And I found myself naturally gravitating towards any other artist, any other dream chaser I could find, because I was thirsty. I was hungry for community. And it's always been the case, and I'm sure there's a lot of artists listening right now. It can be the loneliest job in the world sometimes. And all you want to do is find people who know what you're going through, not just being an artist, but also being an entrepreneur. And for me, especially, discovering, the Whale Discord, it's finding community again. And yes, I'm super fortunate. I have a lot of followers. I have a great followership, but none of those platforms are designed to create community. You have very limited interaction with each other. I post something, I read a bunch of comments. They can't be back and forth conversations all the time. And, you risk the danger of diving into a rabbit hole every time you log on to your phone. And trying to find a new way to stay connected with people, realizing that it's not black and white. It's not simply that digital connections with people aren't authentic. They can be authentic. And I've been really spending a lot of time trying to do that. And now here's an opportunity where not only can I work with people whose work I love, but it's also ability to empower them so we can keep working. And at the same time, I've been really fortunate to earn as an artist, which I know it has been a challenge, especially in the traditional world. You learn, and I was very fortunate to be around a lot of very wealthy, unhappy people. And you learn very quickly that business can be going well, art can be selling, but if you're not having fun, like, what's the point? And for me, it's the rainbow. It's not the pot of gold. And I want to meet as many artists as I can. I want to collaborate with as many artists as I can. I want to have journeys and memories and stories. And at the end, something was created from it. And then from that creation, everybody is able to, sustain themselves and create more. And I think from that standpoint, especially where I'm at in my career, that's what's exciting for me. And if this can also take me away from having to partner with corporations and signing deals, by all means, that'll put me in a situation where I don't have to listen to ideas from people who, log off after 5 p.m. at the end of the day. And
Right.
I'm about my project. This is my life. And that's been a case when with my experiences working with major publishers, major record labels, different companies. It's, they're working with you, but they're not thinking about you on Saturday and Sunday. And every artist listening, every entrepreneur listening, every dream maker listening right now, they understand, like, there's no time off. You couldn't turn it off if you wanted. The ideas are always flowing in your head. And I want to be around people like that more. And if we can do this without, requiring resources from other people, then by all means. And if now I'm in a situation where I can work with my film team and say, look, we're gonna create another beautiful visual piece of art. And now, instead of worrying about the almighty YouTube algorithm or the almighty Spotify algorithm and trying to appease it and trying to get on playlists, we're gonna sell this as an NFT. And we're gonna set this as a budget, or and we're all going to put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and we all going to share equity in it. And now, everybody's coded into the NFT, and everybody will get paid off of it. And now, if we put in, $10,000 and we make 15, now we can put in 15 into the next one and see, and keep going. And now, our creativity can blossom. And at the same time, recognizing that you don't need a lot of resources to bring ideas to life. One of my producers that I work with, he always tells me, he goes, a lack of resources is an abundance of creativity. So this just opens up so many doors to do some really cool things, as well as empowering people. And I think for me, the biggest selfish pull for me is community, finding more people who think like this, and building memories with them and building new experiences with them. So we can look back 10 years and being like, wow, remember when there was only a handful of us doing this and nobody knew what this was? Here we are now. And I think there's gonna be something really exciting about that.
100%. This is a movement, and a movement that is proud to have you have joined the ranks with us. Even in the comments right now, people are saying how strongly that resonated for them. So thank you for sharing that perspective. My understanding, and I wasn't in the clubhouse that night, unfortunately, but my understanding is you were in one of these NFT rooms, and Whale Shark was in there as well, and he was, talking a little bit about NFTs in general and Whale as well, and you shared a piece that you had been inspired to write because of some of the different experiences you were having in Clubhouse and working within, the greater NFT community.
Yes. So pretty much I was, for those on Clubhouse, when the rooms get big, you're pretty much waiting your turn to speak. And I think I was taking notes, really technical notes. And this was before Whale Shark was speaking. And a lot of artists were asking questions around, what marketplace should I use? How do I mint? How do I get this stuff set up? And these are really important questions. And I was taking a bunch of notes. And I think after hearing Whale Shark speak and starting to understand, when he started sharing the vision, of what this is going to look like years from now, and the vision of the vault, the vision of Whale, the vision of, creating a community, an economy, that is no longer considered, a pie in the sky utopia. This can actually happen. With this blockchain technology, with code keeping people honest. It got really inspiring. And then I decided, instead of simply just sitting here and waiting for my turn, I can celebrate this moment, because this is not what I expected to be hearing. And then I ended up writing a poem about it and sharing it when it was my time, instead of asking a bunch of questions. And I just simply called it a moment.
That's dope. Would you be up for sharing it with everybody now?
Of course. I'm getting my toes bit by my little puppy here, so I'm just trying to move her out of the way. Yeah, so I'll read it right now. So it's called The Moment. Half whale, half shark, all heart, showing the importance of art. See, it's beyond owning and selling. It's about serving and telling all creatives that their work is essential. Because they're here to add beauty to the world, make light of our mentals. It's not coincidental that once our economy is set, our spirits get in check. You see, NFTs are here to fill empty seats on the journey to show that love's within reach. It's each one teach one, drop some, seek some. Real support is helping others build their backbone. Empower, then bring it back home. Then let big dreamers know you're no longer aspiring the moment you're trying. We're all artists the moment we start. Through community, we grow, connecting our hearts. When we make livings creating, our creations are living. When we no longer live in lack, our priority is giving. Our mission, our purpose, our focus is service. To storytell and paint explore, it's worth it. We paint in digital caves to create physical rays of love, light, and luminosity of curiosity. A new Renaissance revolution to clear the pollution. Evolving from competition to cooperation to collaboration. And all we ask is for you to bring your imagination. So stop Asian hate, push more artist love. We're in this together, no one below or above. Love.
Wow, so deep, my man. Thank you so much for blessing us with that. That is incredible.
Yo, thank you guys for inspiring it. It's just, it was so refreshing to learn about this community, and and to be overwhelmed with inspiration that I had to get it out, and I don't have too many opportunities doing that all the time. So I appreciate y'all.
I gotta say thank you again. Cryptocurrency, NFTs, there's a lot of different projects that people are working on for different things. And hearing that we inspired as a project and as a community, we helped inspire you to do art and something that awesome just makes me feel really fulfilled that as a community, we are also, making a contribution and really laying the foundation for the future. So that was incredible. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that Whale Shark had talked about possibly, you may mint that, you may not, but that may be something, in the near future that we might look out for on the blockchain.
Yes, completely. It was, I had, when I shared the poem, I said, it's yours, whatever you guys want to do with it. And then, that's how we all got connected. So, we'll have that conversation, but it'll be for the benefit of the community. And for me, it'll be a lesson in figuring out how to do all of this.
Gian, who's one of our mods on our team, said that you just minted it onto our minds. Very true, Gian.
Nice.
So beyond that, though, you're obviously got a lot of ideas ruminating in your head as you move towards working on your own NFT launch. Any thoughts on the kind of medium you'd like to deliver? There's all kinds of stuff from the audio to the visuals to movie clips. There's so many possibilities.
Yeah. So, I mean, within my book, the one of the formats that I have in my book is I have these, we have these quotes, and I'll just show, for example, like what a quote looks like in the book, right? And the thing with the quotes are, they end up being people's favorites, and I've previously had prints of my different quotes, and my book Unlearn has 101 chapters, so we have 100 of these quotes, and the interesting thing is I've connected with a lot of artists because they've taken my quotes and created art around them already. Specifically, some of y'all would know Greg Mike. That's how I connected with Greg Mike. He made some art around my quote. So I've been working with a 3D artist around this idea of, kind of creating a quote book, and Greg Mike put me onto these digital frames. So I was really looking at this idea of creating, some of these pragmatic inspirational quotes and using 3D animation to kind of turn the page and have them continually change. And Alegria was telling me about, within, I guess, the metadata, you can include more information. So then I was thinking about including, a longer explanation of the ideas and the quotes in the metadata as well. And I was thinking, this is something where, people could actually, it's not just about keeping in a vault and forgetting about it. You can open up these quotes and view them and kind of get, your affirmations for the day, whether you have it on your phone. And I think we're going to design them to the phone screen dimensions. And I was thinking, this is a way for people to hold on to these things, but at the same time, feel better about life just by reading them. And, some of my favorite quotes, they're from my writings, but generally there are other people who have picked them out for me, and it's really about what they've connected on when I go through these free flows of writing. So I've been looking at that, as well as I've been getting into production of my own music. So I think down the line, once I've done a Genesis release, once I've completely wrapped my head around this, creating, I've been looking at, what certain musicians have been doing, and, potentially, releasing some music via NFTs, but also, when we were having that one conversation about the idea of even creating living music, so somebody,
Right.
somebody, purchases an NFT song, and then I'm able to update it, whether I'm telling a story, whether it's a real story. So I need a year, in between parts to update it. I'll be able to update it. And from my understanding is I'll know who's holding that NFT and be able to send them the updated NFT of the audio. So creating these living, breathing art pieces, I think are really exciting and interesting as well. As well as, focusing on, I also design clothes. So for example, is one of my designs, make art, make love, make noise, make trouble, just make anything. I have a whole collection of shirts, and the thing with my shirts are I call them flags. So, I have one of the shirts, one of my more popular shirts, that says "Child of an Immigrant," and when I wear that out on the streets, it's a conversation starter. And I try to create these shirts that will get people to speak to each other, eye contact and social interactions in real life are, diminishing. So trying to create these. So, exploring the idea of, minting a design, but then also being able to sell that specific design, and sending the physical shirt to somebody as well, and getting creative and making a 1 of 1 or making a 10 of 10, and not just printing on a Gildan t-shirt, but instead, getting into cut and sew, working with certain artists and seamstress that I've been working with before. When I do, my music videos, I work with stylists and stuff. So here's another opportunity to kind of work with people who've been trying to launch clothing lines and do something really interesting there, and taking my words and creating something that's both funky, but also will get people talking to each other, which I think is really important. So if I can create art that gets people to talk to each other, I feel like that's a big win as well.
Those are super dope ideas, especially, I mean, all of them are. I can just envision, people will really be vying for the particular quote that really talks to them, right? So there's a lot of opportunity to be like, hey, this is what really resonates with me. I want to make sure I have that because it's meaningful. And then the other implementations as well. I mean, you could even put some of your clothes into the metaverse, right? I could be wearing that around in crypto voxels, running around in my 3D avatar and like the virtual world. There's so many opportunities for you. So I'm sure we are all going to be eagerly anticipating what you are going to do next. It sounds like you got a lot of stuff in the works, so I don't want to pin you down in a timeline, but I know some people are excited. So what do you think? Is there an opportunity in the next couple of months we could be seeing a Genesis drop?
Yes, I'm telling myself hopefully by the end of the month. I've been I've been given some prototypes for the quotes in terms of the animations. So I mean, on my end, the writing's done. It's just how to present them, and it was Greg Mike that showed me those digital frames. So I'm really excited at the idea of being able to give a digital a physical side to this. So I think it's more logistical, just figuring it out, but. We got 20 days left in the month, so that would be something fantastic if I could do that to keep myself accountable. But that's me saying it to be accountable, and I'm going to try my best to make that happen.
Right. But either way, we're looking at the near future. So people that are
Yes.
chomping at the bit, they'll have something to eat soon. And I was going to ask you about collaborations possibly in the pipeline, but you may want to keep those close to the vest, it sounds like, since it's just a lot of stuff in the works. Although we may see Greg Mike pop up, it sounds like.
Well, I mean, again, yeah, he's been a dope digital friend, but as well as just a teacher. And I think it was him that kind of subtly put it into my head about adding to the space, whereas everyone else was just saying, get on NFTs. He was like, I'm excited to see what you do and how you contribute to the space. And that really got me thinking as an artist and being like, okay, I have, my goal here is to do something that, add to the space, something that hasn't been done, to help other artists figure that out, but also to honor the spirit of art. So, yeah, definitely something could be in the works with him in the long run. But he's definitely been one of my mentors in schooling me on this, both on a creative side, but also on the how to collaborate, how to mint, how to do all that other good stuff as well. And as well, I've been asking questions on the community. You were helping me out. Alegria was helping me out as well, and I'm going to continually have technical questions. So please, if you guys see me in general, I'm guessing that's the best place to ask the questions. I'm gonna just keep asking questions, and I want to thank everybody for being willing to answer them.
Oh yeah, most definitely. We'll direct you if there's another room, but I'm sure everyone will be excited to help get you to where you need to go to be able to just creatively express. One thing that really resonated with me is you talked a couple times about the connectivity and the social interaction not being there. And, I had a conversation with some other artists about things are different now. You don't go to the Sam Goody or the Strawberries or whatever and grab a CD and have that physical product and look at the liner notes, or, people aren't as into holding on to some of these artifacts of days past, and we're kind of changing that paradigm a little bit with NFTs, right? We're reintroducing that connectivity. People have something that resonates with them, and they hold it and it appreciates in value, at least mentally to them, right?
Mhm.
Because it's meaningful, as opposed to just commoditizing music and art, right? It's more about appreciating the intrinsic value of it and having something to reflect that. So very, very cool that you're going to be entering the space. Everybody is hyped. I have to ask you though, will we be seeing an NFT from Bad Bish Boogie? Is Boogie going to be coming out with her own?
Let's see. Let me see. Let me grab it right now. Oops. So say hi, Boogie. As we go, where's the camera? Say hi, Boogie. She was just sleeping on the floor around me. She didn't appreciate I wasn't paying attention to her, but yeah, she's got to start carrying her own weight around here soon. So
Yeah.
we'll get her into the creative space. But
Nice.
yeah, this has been. I could probably go on for an hour about how much Boogie's has had an impact on my life, and I just got her 10 days ago. So it's been a whole different adventure and a whole different journey, and I'm super grateful for this as well. And it's just, again, it's this reminder of just how important it is to have others in our lives, both from a community standpoint, both from people in our lives. And what I realize is the more peace I find having wonderful people and creatures in my life, the less I'm looking outwardly for anything else. And I think that's a really important thing that I want other people to even hear. One of my best friends who's a recovered alcoholic, what I realized about him was when he found peace, he stopped chasing pleasure. And it was a really interesting thing to see. And so often life gets so hectic, life gets so busy that we just turn to the easiest things to kind of take that anxiety down, take the edge off. And the truth of the matter is when we hold more space and make more time to be creative, spend time around people we enjoy, not just people who we're obligated to be around, sharing ideas, having wonderful conversations, those leave us energized, those fill our hearts. And that's much more important than making a certain amount of money or getting a certain amount of followers or gaining a certain amount of attention. All of that is fast food. It does the trick. It's addictive. It's easy, but it's not sustainable in the long run. And just encouraging everyone to kind of think about what really fills your heart, what really makes you feel happy, what really opens a pathway of love for you, and to pursue that. Because when you do that, you'll need much less of all the other stuff.
I don't think I could possibly follow that. So we're gonna sign off on that note. Humble, thank you so much for joining us today. I have to get a commitment from you right now that you will come back and talk to us again for your Genesis drop.
1000%. I really appreciate you guys holding space for that as well. And I'm always here. I'm game to talk. And to be honest, I don't even know how to close Discord, so it's always open. So feel free, anybody want to DM me. I'm always down to have the conversations.
You know what? I was gonna say, for someone that was just introduced to Discord, you're on there a lot now. Now I know why.
Yeah, I don't know how to turn it off, so I literally just leave it open on the computer, and then
There
if I
you
hear a noise, I run to the computer, be like, "Oh, I got a message."
I guess it's to our benefit, right? We get access to you that otherwise wouldn't be there. I'm going to take us out with another song of yours. Let me add this back in. Here we go. And if you guys don't know, we've been curating a Whale FM Blockchain Beats playlist with some of the artists that join us on Blockchain Beats. And we actually have 5 songs of Humbles or that feature Humble. Here's a particular favorite of mine, Can't Go Back. My man, it's been a pleasure having you on, and can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you.